What's poppin', y'all? There are two goats when it comes to this. I guess you could say modern day sports documentary and kind of shit on YouTube. That boy Flimlo and KTO. And today we got this new KTO video. My boy. One day I hope to meet that dude, man. He seems like a cool cat. But new KTO, y'all. Let's check him out.
Before Deion Sanders was promoting himself as prime time, there was Brian Bosworth,
The Boz.
aka the Boz.
The boss, the haircut, the bandana, his whole get up, man, it was something that we respected.
In the 1980s, there was no player more polarizing than this Oklahoma linebacker. With his outrageous mohawk, bold personality,
People say, yeah, you're a different player on the field. I wish I could be more the player on the field, but you can't go around.
One thing about Boz, I always, I mean, I'm being like, I guess, naive about the situation. I know he was good, but you always hear about this, like his his actions and shit like that. But I'm so curious on like how actual good this nigga was. I'm sure he was all pro and stuff like that, but or all team, because I know in the NFL he sucked. But yeah, I'm curious.
Tackling people in restaurants and supermarkets and stuff.
and devastating.
God
physical
damn, I'm
style
on some
play,
agent
Bosworth
shit.
became a
I am
household
Ethiopian
name,
also.
reaching levels
God
of fame
damn.
similar to that era's
I'm about
rock
to be like
stars
this,
and
bro.
action movie heroes. His
Jeez,
meteoric rise
Christ.
was
I
one of
wonder
the
why I
era's
do
most
rag and shit on
captivating
every time.
storylines. But
Also,
unfortunately,
get my 360.
despite more hype than any prospect in 1987, his pro career did not go according to plan, and seemingly overnight, the Boz went from superstar football celebrity to one of the all-time NFL busts. This is the story of the Boz. Back in 1983, Brian Bosworth was a highly recruited linebacker out of Irving, Texas.
Back in the days, people
initially,
looked so much
he
older.
committed to Texas A&M.
He was 30 years old in that
However,
picture.
Oklahoma
High
head
school
coach
picture.
Barry Switzer was not going to let that slide.
And I'd gone to Texas A&M, and Coach Switzer, I guess, found out the very next day. And I'm sitting in my high school cafeteria, and I'm looking across, and I see this cat walk in a full-length mink coat. He calls me out, "Hey, where's Boss?" And he's got the rings on. "I know you want one of these."
Entering college, Brian Bosworth was a soft-spoken kid
They say that's how Nick Saban recruits. He doesn't even do no hoopla, no crazy shit that my boy like Harbaugh would do. He just would come to your kitchen table or your living room night table. He would put down his 7 championships and just be like, "You want one?" And that's how he gets every recruit in the nation.
who just wanted to play the game. But once arriving at OU, it didn't take long for him to stand up for himself.
He started talking trash, I guess that's what you want to call it. But the first time I heard it or read about it, it really surprised us. I called him on the telephone at school and told him he better cool it.
He redshirted me my first year, and he gave me 44. Came up to me and he said, "Boz, we'd
The
like
red
to
shirt
give
is
your
when you
number to
don't play
Lyle
your
Carr."
freshman
I think
year.
that's when my
Get your
nuts
classes out
dropped.
the way, get bigger so you can
Because I said,
hang
"Coach,
with
you
the
ain't
college
giving my
players.
number away."
Before traveling with the team, Switzer recognized
back
the
to football.
traits
And told him he better cool it.
He redshirted me my first year, and he gave me 44. Came up to me and he said, "Boz, we'd like to give your number to Lyle Carr." I think that's when my nuts dropped.
Thank
Because I
God I
said,
went back.
"Coach, you ain't giving my number away."
Before traveling with the team, Switzer recognized the traits this Bosworth kid possessed in practice, from the tenacious style of play to his rare football IQ. After the team finished up their lackluster 1983 season, Switzer wanted Boz as the team captain going into the 1984 season,
Damn,
despite
as
not
a
having
freshman?
played a single down in 1983
redshirt
due
freshman?
to redshirting.
He came up to me. We were in a table, just going out, and he goes, "These guys out here, they're not motivated. They're worthless. They don't want to win, and I need a leader." And he looked at me and says, "Boz, I want you to be that leader." Now, whether or not you told that
I've
story
never
to
seen that
everybody else,
before.
I don't know.
A freshman.
Prior to Bosworth's arrival, OU had been in a slump. After dominating the 70s, the early 80s had been rough. With another bad season, Switzer was potentially on his way out. He was in need of some big-time players to come save the day, and Bosworth was the answer to his prayers. Throughout the first 4 games of the 1984 season, redshirt freshman Brian Bosworth was
Whoa.
clearly different.
Boy, shot out of there like a cannon.
I look at it as how much I can hurt the guy across the line from me, and that's the way I approach the game. I enjoy dishing out pain, and I enjoy getting pain. I thrive off the deep bruises, the separated shoulder. That's an enjoyment for me.
A step faster than everyone, remarkably instinctual, and played like a man possessed. However, Bosworth's first truly notable college moment came prior to their rivalry game versus Texas. In a heavily anticipated 3-versus-1 matchup, Bosworth said this before they played, quote, "I like Texas people. I just don't like Texas players. They're cocky, with so very little humbleness. I just don't like their attitude towards football players.
Shout out to
I
Mike.
think they treat players like pieces of meat." These comments became the first moment a target
Every
was
Texas
placed on the
nigga I've
kid's
met,
back,
athletic-wise,
a
are
target
asshole.
that would increase in size over the following years. And it was all sparked from a breakup.
The Texas thing, that was really my girlfriend's fault because she decided she wanted to dump me the day before my first game. And she goes, well, I'm going to date this guy from University of Texas. I'm going,
But
Boy.
very critical to the story is the fact that whenever Bosworth talks smack,
Goodness knows Tony Casillas and Brian Bosworth made him pay for it.
he always backed it up on the field. His huge performance versus Texas, including forcing a fumble in the third quarter,
But it looks like Oklahoma's football.
kept Oklahoma in that game. A game in which ended
the
in
power
a
of the
very
kitty cat.
controversial tie where OU should have
Could motivate a nigga.
And it is incomplete.
Leslie 1 foot in bounds, which he clearly does. Has both feet. Too bad for Oklahoma.
We know we beat them. They know we beat them. The score just didn't indicate that.
Throughout the rest of the 1984 season, Bosworth proved to be a star in the making, being named second-team All-American as he helped OU reach the Orange Bowl. The following season was even more impressive. Barry Switzer said this about Bosworth in 1985, quote, "Is Bosworth amazing? He amazes me. He blitzed one time and didn't get to the quarterback, but scared him so bad he fell down." Bosworth, as a redshirt sophomore, was already reaching legendary status.
To look at Brian, you couldn't tell that he's broken 11 bones and a nose. And that's not even counting his own injuries.
He took home the first ever Butt Kiss Award, given to the
Oh,
nation's
shit.
top linebacker,
Nice.
along with being named the Big 8 Defensive Player of the Year, as well as a unanimous All-American. His on-field leadership and play was a
Okay.
huge reason why Oklahoma ended up playing for the national title versus Penn State. Number 1 ranked Penn State struggled to do much of anything versus Oklahoma, and Bosworth was a big reason as to why. He had 12 tackles in that game and played a key role in Oklahoma's
Oh, he
national
won a natty.
championship victory.
Nice.
Bosworth's dominant
Okay,
1985
that's a good
season
accomplishment,
cemented
shit.
his reputation
Nice.
as one of the most talented and physical linebackers in college football history. His aggressive, high-intensity play style made him a fan favorite. But there was something else going on at the same time, something that was taking a life of its own. Bosworth arrived to Oklahoma with a shaggy hairstyle and kept a rather formal
Shaggy.
style throughout 1984. But according to his book, The Boze, Confessions of a Modern Antihero, quote, "After the first game in 1985, Bosworth, down in the dumps because of his poor performance, felt like he needed to change something. Starting with a simple idea of having his hair short on the sides, with the hair standing up on top. Week after week, him and his barber kept modifying it, going for a more bold appearance as time went on. Eventually, it ended up as a bleached
Nigga, I thought they were gonna
mohawk
say this nigga created
before
the fade.
end of
Nigga, my heart
season.
dropped right now.
It had garnered local popularity amongst OU fans.
Don't do
but
that.
with the countrywide recognition during the national championship, this is really where the story of his hair really began to explode.
Oh, he fresh off the natty. Oh, he's
In the aftermath of winning the national title, Bosworth became close with a sports agent, Gary Wishard.
there. It is.
Bosworth was interested in receiving more attention, and Wishard, who saw a massive marketing opportunity on the horizon, helped Boz push the agenda to its limits. The build-up to the 1986 season was one big promotional campaign for this developing image of Brian Bosworth. It landed him on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Considering how outlandish some of these photos were, Bosworth had entered unprecedented territory for a college football player. You just didn't see this level of self-promotion and silliness from college athletes at this
That,
time.
my friend, is called
And
beginning
it
of
couldn't
the
have
end.
had better timing. The mid-80s was a wacky, colorful era infused with action movie stars, Miami Vice, and an overall demand for fun
With Macho Man,
personalities.
man.
Bosworth's developing image at the time perfectly fit that criteria.
This cut is like a rebellion cut. This is a rebellion against my old image. This is a rebellion against my parents, society itself, really.
Which took his popularity beyond the gridiron and into pop culture. No longer was he just a great football player, he was an icon. Week after week throughout 1986, Oklahoma was routinely placed on national TV. And as time progressed, Bosworth kept adding more to the look.
But it's no question that Boz is the biggest boomer sooner of them all in terms of publicity. When he may leave the country in pierced earrings, but there's no denying that he's one heck of a football player.
Here's another quote from his book. Quote, "I'm not sure what happened after that, except this haircut of mine started exploding on top of people's heads all over the country. It was a weird feeling, knowing you'd start some sort of national trend. I felt like the Beatles or somebody. It wasn't a great feeling though, because so many people looked like turds in it. Then somebody started calling it the Boz." Bosworth's dad, who despised the look, was at Sears one day and saw a kid sporting the exact same look. He went up to the little kid and asked, "Where'd you get that haircut, son?" "Oh man, this is the Boz," the kid said. "Everybody's got one." His dad thought the earth was being invaded. Kids loved it. But like his father, not everyone was thrilled about this image of the Boz. Remember how I said he had this target on his back ever since those comments he made about Texas in 1984? Well, with the image Bosworth created, combined with defending a national championship, while also continuing to make comments about his opponents, you can just imagine how big that target was. In a number 1 versus number 2 matchup versus Miami, the Hurricanes got the best of the Sooners. Bosworth had a heroic performance in the loss, with over 20 tackles.
He wanted that, didn't he? And Bosworth didn't want to let him have it.
But that didn't stop the crowd from uniting together against him.
Bye, Bosworth.
Later in the season, while playing in Boulder, Colorado, fans threw oranges at Bosworth during the game.
Here come the oranges out of the Colorado section.
I ran around the corner and I made a play out there on the sideline, and I came around to the student section, and I saw them up there, and I just gave them one of these, And some idiot in the stands threw a frozen Coke bottle and hit that cheerleader in the head, and they had to stop the game. And I said, "Oh my God, my actions are now affecting the game." Game was over. We're 28-0. Coach Switzer's over on the sideline, and I'm standing over there next to him, and he goes, "Hell, boss, don't stand next to me. They'll fuck up the side."
Despite the noise around the Boz, he was still playing at an extremely high level.
Barry Switzer's a G, man.
That as a linebacker, he was a Heisman finalist, despite the award primarily featuring offensive players. And he was named a All-American
won that year?
and Butkus Award winner once again. To this day, he's the only 2-time winner of the award. However, his college career would come to a disgraceful conclusion. Bosworth was busted for steroids and was ruled out of the Orange Bowl. Frustrated with this ruling, as Bosworth has stated later on, he let the Boz take over. This shirt that he wore on the sidelines cost him the rest of his career at Oklahoma.
Welcome to Russia.
To call the NCAA a bunch of Russian communists is a wild thing to say. Some will defend Bosworth and say that he was ahead of his time for standing up against the NCAA for taking advantage of athletes for decades. But Bosworth himself,
but not in that way though,
he
nigga,
deeply regrets his actions. In the aftermath, Barry Switzer, who was known to let a lot of things go, dismissed him from the team. And Bosworth had no choice but to get ready for the NFL. Keep in mind, this happened in a day and age where players loved representing their college programs, and most of the best players played through their senior years. So this was a huge blow to Bosworth personally. In a strategic attempt to play for a good NFL team, Bosworth waited till after the NFL draft to declare, making him eligible for the supplemental draft. And his agent sent letters to 23 of the franchises telling them that if they drafted Bosworth, he was not going to play for them. The problem was, Bosworth had no leverage, since he wasn't going to be playing at Oklahoma after being dismissed. So, when the Seahawks won the rights to select Bosworth, they drafted him. Seattle was one of the teams who Bosworth told he would not play for. This led to initial controversy over the pick. was he going to play for them? Hold out? Demand a trade? Well, eventually, he signed the biggest contract in team history at the time.
Wow.
Throughout the build-up to his
down
rookie
yet.
season kicking off,
Crazy.
the Boz kept up the photo shoots, arrived in a helicopter to practice, allegedly alienated others on the team.
Oh, he was the white
in a
AB.
typical
That's all he
Bosworth
was.
fashion, called out John Elway for his first career game.
I really don't know John personally. There are some people in this world that chemically you just do not get along with, whether it be for one reason or another.
Although the Seahawks lost that game, this turned out to be a genius marketing move, as 15,000 Broncos fans bought anti-Boz shirts for the game, which were sold to them by Bosworth's company. He used a similar calling out tactic with Bo Jackson later in the season, which turned out to be an all-time, infamously bad idea.
I remember
the hype
this.
for the Monday night showdown between the Raiders and Seahawks was off the charts.
Spoiler alert.
In large part due to the drama surrounding the comments made by Bosworth. Throughout the game, Bo Jackson dominated, and one particular play stands out above the rest.
Third and 1
go.
from the 2. Here's Bo.
Oh, word.
And here goes Bo for the touchdown.
Drag this punk ass 3 yards and more.
Is both players' most talked about moment on the football field. Legendary for Bo Jackson and terrible for the Boz. They even poked fun at it in a somewhat recent commercial.
Thanks for not running me over.
You mean again?
The Boz image, by this point, had really started to take its toll on Brian Bosworth the person. Playing the character of the Boz led him to becoming one of the most polarizing players in the sport, something he struggled to live up to as it took a life of its own. He also ended up burning bridges with those closest to him. That autobiography that I've referenced throughout this video was published back in 1988. In it, Bosworth said that the Sooner football program was rampant with drug use, guns, and other wild behavior. This eventually led to an NCAA investigation, which later led to Barry Switzer being forced to resign.
But I have
because of that whose comments
is in the best interest of the football program.
Oh man, you're hurting other people's jobs now, bro.
To this day, this has had huge implications on the relationship between former OU players and Brian Bosworth, and it's something that Bosworth himself regrets.
I think I've shamed the program in a lot of ways. And I want to apologize to each and every one of you guys for the things I did.
Overall,
steroids,
due to chronic shoulder problems, Bosworth's career in the NFL only lasted 24 games.
They didn't think that there would be any cartilage damage, and when they went inside, they saw
less than 2 years.
That my joint had a hole in it, and there was a piece of cartilage, kind of like a rip in a shirt.
He was great at times, but the lack of longevity, combined with being more known for his antics, has led many people to consider him a huge bust. The Boz image continued to live on through Hollywood. Bosworth became known as a B-action movie guy, with his biggest hit being the 1991 film Stone Cold. Later, he played a role in The Longest Yard, and has continued to be featured in shows and commercials periodically ever since.
B-roll pays the
like
bills.
Many people who were too young to live back in the Boz era, I learned about him through the ESPN 30 for 30 film. If you haven't seen it, I highly suggest checking it out, as it goes way more into depth about the personal struggle Brian dealt with throughout his life, especially with his father. It can be purchased for just $3 on YouTube.
Boz is your basic nonconformist, though he does like fast cars. But that's Boz. Everything he does is flashy, including his haircut. He designed it himself, the Arnold Schwarzenegger commando cut with a mohawk ponytail. It makes him look like a bad dude. Like a bad dude.
Business in the front, party in the back. Another great video, man, by my boy KTO, man. Go get at, man, and subscribe, man. Shout out to the homie Chris Boz. And give your boy a subscribe, man. New videos coming out soon, y'all. Peace.